What's up, guys? I'm LQ. This is the LQ Review. Thank you so much for joining me right here at my YouTube channel. This is where we talk about all the geeky, nerdy stuff that we love to talk about. Movies, video games, comic books, and TV shows. And right now, right now I'd like to talk about the new short film that just dropped on Netflix called Two Distant Strangers. Now, I'm always kind of careful when I talk about stuff like this. I'm a pasty white guy who can't necessarily always relate to, the plight of African Americans here in the United States. So I try not to make assumptions, and I try not to necessarily view things strictly from my perspective or the perspective of my worldview, and I try to expand that and view things from the perspective of other people's experiences, other people's worldviews, and other people's goals for why they would make a show like this. And the reason that I say why they would make a show like this is I go back to some of my worldview. And in my worldview, I'm a complex person when it comes to my politics. And I don't really talk about politics here because we're talking about geeky stuff. And politics, speaking of geeky stuff, right? And politics is very divisive. You can't talk about politics and not make somebody angry. So inherently, someone's going to get angry watching this. But just stick with me here. I'm a very complex person politically. I actually lean very liberal on a lot of topics, especially a lot of social topics. I lean very liberal on. A lot of topics I lean very conservative on, especially a lot of fiscal politics, foreign policy politics. I lean very conservative on. There's a lot of topics that are very divisive and very polarizing that I really don't have much of an opinion on. That I could care less either way. And then there's my worldview as a Christian man, where I've got, so there are certain political issues that I'm very right on. There's certain political issues I'm very left on. There's certain political issues I don't care about at all that are very polarizing and very divisive. But all that is under the umbrella of being a Christian man. And as a Christian man, I believe that we are all, regardless of our skin color, regardless of our gender, regardless of how we view ourselves, be that I'm a good person, be that I'm a bad person, or how we view ourselves in terms of gender identity. Any of that, we are all made in the image of God. Every single one of us. So as somebody who is a Christian, I definitely take the standpoint where I'm going to sympathize with anybody who's being marginalized in any way whatsoever, because I'm a Christian and I believe we are all made in the image of God, and that we all deserve the same respect because we are all creations of God. I wanted to preface that because I also wanted to say that I'm not a fan, and here we're getting into some of my politics now. I'm not a fan of identity politics. Now, what is identity politics? Well, identity politics isn't advocating for homosexual people. It's not advocating for African American people. It's not advocating for groups of people. It looks like that sometimes, but that's not really what identity politics is. Identity politics is dividing people into small groups of people, and then sometimes even subgroups of people from those divided groups. You are dividing groups of people. You're dividing people into groups, and then you are identifying the oppressors and the oppressed. That's what identity politics are. In the United States, the oppressor is almost straight white male. Almost always. Sometimes it's rich, straight, white male, whatever the case may be. But it's almost always straight, white male. So identity politics is dividing people into groups and identifying oppressors and the oppressed. And the reason for that is to keep people from getting along. All right? I've studied the government. I teach government, and I've studied enough to know that they don't really want the people to be a united front. That goes against a lot of their inherent desires for power. And I'm not getting conspiracy theorists here. I mean, there's There's a lot of evidence on that. So I'm not a big fan of identity politics. And a show like this, or a movie like this, really kind of leans into, it kind of reinforces some things about the United States that I don't like right now, and that's some of the identity politics issues. And that's fine. I mean, I understand why people want this stuff to be heard, why people want this stuff to be seen, because it's important. For me, it's important that people know what's happening because we are all children of God, and we all should be treated equally, and with the same respect. I've always taken the viewpoint where I've got a bunch of African American students. I've got a bunch of African American athletes on my track team, and if I'm not being an advocate for them, then I'm not doing my job. So again, I feel like there's a line that I'm walking here when I say that I support the idea of saying that there is a problem with inherent racism in our institutions, including police. And there is. If you deny that, then you've got some blinders on. There is an issue with inherent racism in our justice system. And those issues need to be addressed. And they need to be fixed. And how they're going to fix them, I don't really know. I'm not, I mean, thankfully, I'm not being tasked with fixing those issues. But there is an issue. But I also look at the approach that people take when addressing issues. And the approach when you're addressing this issue can't alienate the other side, right? You can't have an approach that says we should all be equal, but we're going to make sure that we frame this argument in a way that makes you look inferior. And they go through a monologue. And so let me back up. So Two Distant Strangers is about an African American guy who wakes up every morning, and he's leaving a girl's house that he just spent the night with, and he's on his way back to his apartment and to get to his dog, and he keeps running into a police officer, and he's on a time loop. So it's like kind of like Happy Death Day, where every day he runs into the same police officer named Merck. All right, a little on the nose there, and he keeps getting killed. No matter what he does, every day he's getting killed by this police officer. And clearly, you know, this is a message, right? This is a message. Short film here. And I've always said, and anybody that's watched my channel knows what I've always said about political messages in film. I don't care if it's a conservative message. I don't care if it's a liberal message. I think messaging in your shows, in your movies, is a great thing, regardless of what the political standpoint is, because it gets conversation going. And that's one of the strongest points about this, is that it gets conversation going. And I thought that this was a very well done, well told narrative that had a lot of tension in it, and it had moments of sadness, it had moments of anger. It definitely made you feel for this young African American man. It made you feel that it did what it set out to do. It made you feel like how he was being treated was unfairly, and it was. I mean, you're supposed to feel that way, and it made you feel that way, and you should feel that way. So, kudos to the show on that front. They spent a lot of time developing this African American man. He's a comic book writer or drawer. He's got a dog that he loves. And he's very courteous. At the beginning, when he first went through the loop, he opened the door for the white man, and after you, sir, and the white man just didn't say anything and walked in. So they definitely established him as a good person. It also felt like at moments they went out of their way to establish white people as being not good people. So I don't know. I like you said, there's a line to walk here, and I just feel very. I'm always very careful about this because with the way that our world is today, it would not take much for people to yell that LQ is a racist, which is not any. It's couldn't be further from the truth. But cancel culture being what it is, I have to think about how I frame what I'm saying here. So definitely the show accomplishes what it wants to accomplish. It wants to point out the fact that black people are being treated unfairly by the criminal justice system. It wants to point that out, and it did a good job of pointing that out. It was very effective, and I definitely agree with the sentiment. Like I said, I teach in my class. I work at a private Christian school, by the way, and I teach in my class that yes, there is a major issue and it needs to be addressed. And I challenge my students, you guys will be the ones to address this. You guys will be the ones to fix this. I have faith that you guys will fix this. I just don't like when shows like this are pandering either. And there were parts of it that felt a little bit pandering to me. Especially where the white cop was concerned. And I get it. There are evil people out there in every position, and that includes police officers. But I just think we need to be careful when depicting a race as bad. and I don't know, I guess that's not necessarily what they're doing here, but I watched it twice, and both times I watched it just didn't seem like there's a lot of positivity coming from the white community, and that's not what I see in my daily life. But again, I'm not African American, so I can't profess to walk that and understand that. I've never experienced racism, so I can't say that I can't sit here and say I've never seen that. Of course I haven't ever seen that. But all the white people that I'm around are allies, and I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm digging too deep into it. This type of show gets me thinking. It gets me thinking about where we are as a country right now. Where we are as a country right now, the silly things we're doing as a people right now, the silly leaders that we're electing right now. Let's face it, neither Trump nor Biden is what America needed. America, needed someone else. I think we've had enough old white dudes in the White House for a while. So these shows get me thinking, and I'm just kind of thinking out loud right now. I think the bottom line here is that everyone needs to do better. Everyone needs to do better. White people definitely need to understand that there is an issue with inherent racism in this country, with institutionalized racism in this country. It exists. We can't ignore that it exists, and we have to be a part of the solution. If we're not a part of the solution, we're part of the problem. I also think there needs to be some sensitivity in regards to how identity politics are used in the media. All right, identifying entire groups of people as oppressors doesn't do any good either. Identifying entire groups of people as oppressors creates oppression. It creates division. It creates animosity. But that's the point of identity politics. The point of identity politics is to create animosity. So I just think we need to be careful about that. And I was reading a lot into this. I was really watching it. I watched it twice, and I paid a lot of attention, and maybe I overanalyzed some things, because the bottom line is this was a very well done short film, very well done. It accomplished what it set out to accomplish. The acting was very good. The cop might have been a little bit over the top on his acting, but I think that was definitely intentional. There were some moments that were very on the nose. The "I can't breathe" moment was very on the nose. So, very on the nose in a lot of ways. But again, it accomplished what it set out to do, and it was well done. And I enjoyed it, and I recommend it. I just want to, again, I just want to say that we need to be careful in this country with identity politics, because we're going down this weird road right now. Identity politics coupled with cancel culture, canceled with a whole bunch of other stuff, or coupled with a whole bunch of other stuff happening right now. It's just this real weird place America is in. And I always try to lean on my faith and lean on my teachings that everybody is a child of God. Everybody is created in God's image. And my second commandment that I'm asked to follow from God. The first greatest commandment is to love God. That's the first one. The second greatest commandment is to love your neighbor. Jesus did not say, when he said the second greatest commandment is to love your neighbor, he did not say love your white, straight, Christian neighbor. No, he said love your neighbor. That means love your black neighbor, your Asian neighbor, your Jewish neighbor, your Muslim neighbor, your homosexual neighbor. Love your neighbor. There was no identifiers when Jesus said love your neighbor. He said love your neighbor. And I feel like that's something that's lost on a lot of people in this country. And I don't think identity politics is helping us get back to love your neighbor. And that's what I want to see, is the United States adopting the second greatest commandment. Love your neighbor. How hard is that? That's all I want to do. That's all I want to do is spread the love of LQ around the world. So, guys, Two Distant Strangers was very good. It was very well done. I had some issues with it, but none of the issues really made me not enjoy it. It was a very enjoyable, but the biggest thing here is that it was very thought-provoking. As you can see, I just made an 18-minute video about a movie that is 30 minutes long. It was very thought-provoking, and that's probably the biggest compliment that I can give it, is that it was thought-provoking. So that's my take on Two Distant Strangers. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below. Let's be nice to each other here. Let's be nice to each other and just, send each other some love, and let's just discuss in a nice way down below what we thought of this. And I would love to engage in conversation. So thank you so much for joining me here at the LQ Review, guys. And until next time, we'll see you later.